I'll make you famous.
We work for Mr. Tunstall as regulators. We regulate any stealing of his property. We're damn good, too. You can't be any geek off the street. Gotta be handy with the steel, if you know what I mean. Earn your keep.
Regulators! Mount up!
Good evening, family. Good evening, and welcome to another edition of the Political Regulators. I'm your host, Hassan Giordano, aka Mr. Politics, back in the building. You know, it would not be a show if I didn't have my co-host with me, the former mayor of the city of Baltimore, none other than Sheila Dixon. Good evening, Madam Mayor. What's happening?
Good evening. Good evening. Hey, a busy weekend. Did you make it to AFRAM?
I did. I hopped, skipped through there real quick, but
Did
wasn't
you?
something I was pleased with at all. Like, that wasn't the AFRAM of old. I can tell you that. They did not do a great job of putting together African American theme like they used to with AFRAM. Like that looked like it was really just thrown together and like, hey, just a big party. That's all.
Right. That's what people said as well. And I heard there was this vendor that the vendors were selling stuff for like $30 because what's his name? Faraji took his son and another young man, and they paid $30 for chicken nuggets, chicken tenders, and French fries, and another $10 for a drink.
Wow.
What?
Yeah.
And the big turkey legs that they sell, $30. Everything was $30.
Yeah, that sounds like inflation. Inflation, yeah.
I didn't feel like doing. I mean, I do a lot of walking, but I didn't feel like walking, and
Well, that
once
was
you
the
become
crazy
full.
part. Is trying to park and then walk all the way into the park, man. That's why I wasn't really thrilled to go, Madam Mayor. It was just like,
Yeah.
that's not. They're better off doing it downtown. And I hated when they did it down at the stadium because it's always like beaming right down on you when they were doing it past couple years.
But the sun was, yeah.
Right,
But
at least you could park right there and get right to it. You know what I mean?
yeah. Plus, you had other forms of public transportation. You could take light rail. You could take subway. You could take bus. You could get on the Baltimore circulator.
Mm-hmm.
And they had a whole lot of tents, educational tents, cultural tents, things for kids, but hey, I try to get me a VIP pass, but I tell you, once you become a former, man, they don't look out for you.
Right. Even your own, the people you put
I don't even want to talk about it. I come to the conclusion that people forget when you help them, and then they, not that I help them to expect something in return, but my goodness,
right.
I'm talking about year after year after year after year.
That's it. A pass to an event that nobody goes to anyway. My goodness.
Well, I heard they had 170,000 people. I hope the group that's getting ready to come on, I hope they went out and got signatures because I heard it was a lot of Baltimoreans that were out there.
I can tell you about that. Yeah, I can tell you about that.
All right, well, tonight, family, we do have a power pack show for you. So first hour, we're going to be joined by two gentlemen who are looking to get your signature in order to reduce the property tax here in the city of Baltimore on the November's general election. Only get your signature if you're a Baltimore City voter, by the way. Then after that, we're going to have a mini candidates forum as we got three candidates looking to secure one of two seats that will now open up here in the city of Baltimore on the Baltimore City School Board. So you definitely want to stay tuned to that. All those, I want to remind the viewers, if you're a candidate for office, you want to get back on the show, we only got, 3 shows left before the primary. Remember, family, we are not on the primary election, July 19th. We will come on the next day, July 20th, give you all the latest counts. There may not be a lot of victories, I'm hearing, because they got to count the mail-in ballots late after 8 o'clock on election night. So if the race isn't decided on election night, the what's been counted early voting in election day, then you might have to wait a few days. But nonetheless, we'll be on July 20th. Maybe a couple winners we'll bring on and highlight exactly what happened during that election. So if you want
So
to get
why do they wait to count the mail-in ballots? Because they think something.
Yeah, the General Assembly would not allow the local boards try to get it during the General Assembly to say, let us start counting the mail-in ballots as we get them in. That way it's no backlog in trying to count these things.
Yeah.
They felt like, no, that opens the door for fraud some way. And, we can't do it. It was like, no, if we calculate an early voting as per day, then why can't we calculate mail-in ballots the same way we do early voting? The General
Right.
Assembly refused to pass it, obviously because of the whole big lie and everything else that's being. But it's a democratically controlled General Assembly. I was really shocked that they did not listen to the experts over at the local boards of elections that were pushing for this and some other things because their backs was up against the wall because of redistricting and because they had to redraw all these lines. They just wanted it done. And unfortunately, we're going to get what we're going to get. And I don't think that that's going to be the best result for many of the candidates or the voters of not only just Baltimore, but across the state of Maryland. But Baltimore, look, we already seen the 43rd district, they were sending voters in the 45th their information and vice versa. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we've already had
That
a
area of Laurierville, the area of Laurierville over there,
yeah.
they sent them because wasn't the district Laurierville part of the 45th?
Well, no, Laurelville's
Some
usually, most of it's always been the 43rd, but like one street down to the south of it near Harford Road was the 45th because they border each other. So I could see, how, because, when they do redistricting, they got to go street by street by street to see where the lines are to see if, it's an exhaustive process. And to make these election workers have to come and do this at breakneck speed in order to get it all ready, in order to then get out the mail-in ballot applications and all these sample ballots before July 19th was a task in and of itself. They really should have extended it down to at least September, in my opinion, in terms of the primary elections. Then they were so worried about the general election, November, the turnaround there. But we used to have it in September. I think the Democrats are only worried that they know they got to raise a lot of money to contest against Kelly Schultz in November. So they don't want, their Democratic nominee only have 6 weeks to raise the type of money that they'll need. But anyway, neither here nor there. If you're a candidate, you want to come onto the show in the last 3 weeks, make sure, as always, email us at info@dmvdaily.news. And, of course, our producer, JJ, will get back with you. Or you can leave us a message on the Facebook or the YouTube that you're watching right now. If you want to join tonight's conversation, remember to chime in into the discussion. If you want to ask us or our guest a question, chime in on the feeds of Facebook and YouTube. JJ will make sure he conveys that to us, and we'll try to get your questions and our comments in. And you're definitely going to probably have a few questions and comments about this next topic that we're about to bring up. So I'm going to bring on two gentlemen who are going to explain exactly what we're talking about tonight. If you actually saw today's Baltimore Sun, they wrote an article as this group, Renew Baltimore, is trying to lower the city's property tax rate by almost a half over the next 6 years by way of charter amendment, which means they're not going the usual governmental route that local government is passing a law. Instead, they're actually taking it straight to the voters. So they have to garner 10,000 voter signatures from the city of Baltimore by August 1st in order to get this ballot initiative going to the November general election. So we're going to talk about that tonight with Matthew Weisfield from Roland Park from Renew Baltimore and Anaban Basu from the Sage Policy Group. Gentlemen, welcome to the Political Regulators.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So the first question I have right off the box is, explain to the viewer audience, many of whom are watching, what exactly does this initiative strive to do, and why is it necessary now? Matt?
Well, people can see it in a variety of different ways, but For me, I've lived in Baltimore City pretty much my entire life. From the age of 9 years old, I started to go to elementary school here, went to high school here. I went away for college for 4 years. I lived in New York for 5 years. I moved back here in 1996. I've lived in Baltimore City since then with a wife and kids and family. I love this city for its good parts and its bad parts. And my wife and I, quite frankly, have done a lot in this community. I've volunteered for a lot of nonprofits. I've mentored young men. I took stats for Baltimore City College high school football team for 5 years. I had some mentees on the team and such. And so we're very involved. But one thing that kind of light bulb on for me is I've done, I guess, a lot of I don't know, maybe little things. But all of a sudden, when I heard that the voters of Baltimore City could get 10,000 signatures. We didn't have to wait for the politicians to do anything. We could get the 10,000 signatures and then it would go on the ballot. That hit me like a lightning bolt. And I said, that is something that A, I think I can personally help with, and B, it will help hundreds of thousands of people in every single neighborhood in Baltimore City. There is not a single neighborhood in Baltimore City that will not be helped by this plan. And that just really appealed to me because so far in my life, I've helped 100 people and I've mentored 50 young men and blah, blah, blah. But this is something that's going to help hundreds of thousands of citizens in our city. And it's going to tremendously help the city itself as an entity. But the fact that it's every single neighborhood and so many people, it really appealed to me.
Anibal, he explained how it'll impact people, but from the nuts and bolts, you're an economist, a renowned economist in this country. So explain how a property tax that is really the crux, a good majority of the city government's funding, how that and its reduction from 2.248% down to 1.25% over 6 years, how is that going to benefit Baltimore overall?
Oh, it benefits in so many ways. So, as you know, in surrounding jurisdictions, Baltimore County, the property tax rate is $1.1 per $100 assessed value. In Anne Arundel County, it's 0.933 for $100 of assessed value. Montgomery County, which is closer to Washington, of course, 0.94%. In Howard County, it's 1.014%. But in each case, less than half our real property tax rate in Baltimore City. And yet, they enjoy better services. Those counties have AAA bond ratings, meaning that the New York rating agencies view them as able to easily pay back their debt. Baltimore City doesn't have a AAA bond rating. Baltimore City struggles financially all the time.
Did we not? Let me ask one quick question. When did we lose our AAA bond rating? Because we did have it.
We did have it, but years and years ago, several decades ago, we have lost that AAA bond rating. I have to look up, Madam Mayor, exactly which year it happened. But ever since I've been in Baltimore, and I came to Baltimore in 1992, we have not had that AAA bond rating. So I have to look back and see when exactly that happened. Baltimore County, by the way, has a AAA bond rating from every single major bond rating agency. It's one of the few counties in the country that has that distinction. And again, their property tax rate is less than half of ours. Why is that? Because they have a larger middle class. Their population grows. Their properties are worth more because, in part, the property tax rates are lower. And so it costs less to own a house there. It's more affordable to retire there. And I'm not saying that Baltimore County has no issues, but they certainly have a more favorable tax environment for residents. And I will tell you something. I moved several years ago from Baltimore City to Baltimore County. I say that in the interest of full disclosure. When Sheila Dixon was mayor, I could never have imagined moving from Baltimore City. But when Stephanie Rawlings Blake became mayor, it was quite easy to imagine. And I decided that I needed to be governed from Towson, along with the balance of my family. And I've never looked back. One day I want to move back to the city. But right now, I'm in Baltimore County. And why is that? Services are better. And the property tax rate is lower. And so we want to usher forth that same type of equilibrium for Baltimore City. More taxpayers, more valuable housing stock, more investment to restore currently vacant homes, more restaurants, more retailers, more valuable commercial property. So yes, the property tax rate will fall under our plan, 6 years. Yeah. But the value of property in Baltimore City expands, and ultimately that'll translate into more tax revenues for Baltimore City and therefore higher quality service.
That's correct.
So explain how our property value expands. Because I'm all for reducing the property tax. I've lived here my entire life. I've tried to leave many times. Had opportunity to travel all over the world doing business. But this is my home. I live in an area, Hunting Ridge, that is a middle class, very mixed, diverse, culturally, etc. community. And you're right. When I get that tax bill and I look at it, I was like, sheesh, But doesn't also the assessment and something has to happen at the state level as well? That's always been a challenge. Were you on our Blue Ribbon Committee that we created to reduce the property tax and look at a whole host of items during the transition from Mayor O'Malley to me?
I don't believe so, Madam Mayor. I don't think I was on that.
I'm gonna see if
Would
Andy
have loved to have been.
Frank have a copy, then, so you can take a look at it. But so kind of explain about the assessment part, though. How will
Right.
my property increase as a result?
Well, look, what determines a property's value? How much people are willing to pay for it if they want to buy it. And so when you have such high property tax rates, what happens? The cost of owning that piece of property is higher. And then the market looks at that and says, that's a less valuable property to me because I'm going to get hit with this high tax bill each and every year let's say on a per square foot basis. And so I'm going to choose instead to buy in Baltimore County, Carroll County, Anne Arundel County, Hartford County, even Prince George's County, which actually in some of the jurisdictions have pretty high tax rates themselves. And so what happens? Fewer buyers for Baltimore City properties, it's not as valuable. And then, of course, the assessments often are based on comparables, right? How much did your neighbor's home sell for? Now, if your neighbor is in Baltimore County, their home probably sold for more than if your neighbor is in Baltimore City, meaning you're in Baltimore City. And so the key is to make Baltimore City property appear more valuable, to be more valuable to the marketplace. If you lower property tax rates, there are more buyers for any given individual property. And given that there are more buyers, that drives up the value of that property, and ultimately that shows up in assessments. Of course, we have a 3-year assessment cycle that's operated by the state of Maryland. So within 3 years, you would see much of the property in Baltimore City reassessed to higher valuations. And I've pointed this out to folks before, that even as we cut the property tax rate meaningfully, your property tax payments may not be reduced by nearly as much because your property is going to become more valuable over time, which means you get wealthier. But it also is another reason to think that the city could actually generate much more revenues going forward by adding population, turning vacant properties through investment into inhabited properties, creating more housing choice for residents, by the way. It's a win-win-win situation. And I'm surprised that so many people at City Hall want to defend the status quo. How do you defend the status quo? How do you defend declining property rates, lonely streets, restaurants closing, retailers closing? How do you defend that? Well, they do. And that's where we are right now. And we want to.
I think part of why they defend it is because they really don't understand the process and what that means. And a lot of the council people, in particular, are just starting to understand how to read the budget. I met with someone earlier. I won't name that council person, and because of the recycling, they want to have the city provide a tax money back to the citizens because we're paying for every week recycling along with trash, but we're not getting it. And I said, you can forget that. First of all, the city's not going to get back any tax dollars, as the fact that they reduced our recycling.
Yeah.
So, but I think the way that you're going is probably going to be the best way at this point, because there's been efforts in the past that we've tried to do it. And I think that, we did nickel and dimes, et cetera, but it was only symbolic. And you're right, we have to do something drastic. So how many signatures? You need 10,000 resident signatures, correct?
Yes, and that's right. And that is, we need 10,000, valid or confirmed signatures. Historically, for better or worse, we've been told that, a decent number of signatures will be, whether they're proper or not, they'll, for whatever reason, let's say, I'll be a little tongue in cheek or say an I is not dotted and a T is not crossed. It's not quite that bad, hopefully. But, someone's in a different address. Someone's legitimately signs it, but they put a different address than on their voting record. That may very well get disqualified, so to speak. So we do need to get 10,000 valid ones. We think in reality we probably need to get maybe somewhere between 15 and 20,000.
Yep. And I'm gonna tell you something. I've led many statewide and local ballot initiatives and charter amendments references. If the person is registered as, let's say, Madam Mayor, registered as Sheila Ann Dixon, and she
Right.
signed Sheila Dixon, they
Yeah.
throw it out because she didn't
Oh,
use
wow.
her middle name.
Yeah,
And most
there-
people
yeah.
don't know or
Right.
remember what they registered under. That's
Yeah,
why
you're-
you need the voter file to go right with
Right.
you to say, hey, this is what you're
Yeah.
registered as.
Yeah, there's a document called the Baltimore City Petition package that we've received from the Baltimore City Board of Elections. It does have a date on the front of 2017, but we were told it's the most updated version. And that says that does say that it does explain quite a bit about if you're John T. Smith and you sign it John Smith, or you sign it Jonathan T. Smith, and granted, those actually are not supposed to get automatically DQ'd, so to speak. But we'll fight that battle when we get there. But we got to get our 15 to 20,000 signatures to get our 10, and that's what we plan on doing. And by the way, sorry for those listening, as it might have been said, it's definitely a sprint. This is going to be an all-out sprint because August 1st is the deadline. I think it's 5 p.m. on August 1st. So we are working our butts off on this happily on a volunteer basis, and we are going to go all out and run, as they say, in track and field and swimming. We're gonna run through the finish line, and we're gonna go full on right till August 1st at 5 o'clock, and we're going to try to get it as many as we can. And I hope for the health of this city and for hundreds and hundreds of thousands of citizens in this city, I hope that we are successful, and we ask for your help, and we want your help, and we welcome your help distributing petitions, signing petitions, collecting petitions, going to our website, which, by the way, is www.renewbaltimore.org, O-R-G, because we're a nonprofit, of course. And so we would love for you to go to our website, read about it, get a petition from the website, and follow the instructions and get it back to us. And we're going to give our darndest to get this done by August 1st.
And Ricky Spector, Hassan, is a part of this committee.
Correct.
She's in Israel celebrating her 85th birthday.
Yeah.
But before she left, she had them call me. She called me, and then she had them talk to me about being a part of this. And I told them to send me the information. Let me take a look at it. Yep. And
well, I won't hold that against them. Now, when Paul Stokes was on board, that sold me right there. That's my man.
Nice.
And when Matt told me he was calling you, I said, "Well, I'm gonna wait for my mayor to tell me which way I should go before I act." Because look, people respect the fact you're a former. And this is what I have to ask this, Madam Mayor and Audubon. This is a question that I've heard over and over again. A city of Baltimore, let's put it where it is. Mayor Scott called this absurd, or his administration at least called it quote unquote absurd in his Baltimore Sun article. But in a city whose revenue in the past year was $3.3 billion, of that $3.3 billion, I think 30% or so, about $1 billion, was from the property tax.
That's
correct. If you're going to reduce a third of the city's revenue stream, what do you replace that with? How does the government continue to operate with such a large reduction in its revenue stream?
Well, that was one of the questions I had.
I'll let Honorable answer that, but I'll just say something real quick, and I'll let Honorable answer that. But do keep in mind this is a 6-year plan where we have small steps for 6 years. We're not slashing anything right out of the gate. So I want to make that point. And, of course, as Honorable is going to explain better than me, whether we have an extra 1,000 people that stay in our city or live in our city, or 1,500 or 2,000 or 25,000, or lo and behold, we actually get a positive population impact, which I believe will happen. That'll be offset the property tax revenue with higher income tax revenue. And then a huge part of this is very important part is there's going to be more real estate transactions, more people buying homes, buying properties, perhaps selling a property or higher value if that's their prerogative. But all of those transactions generate what most of us are familiar with, called a recordation and transfer tax, an R&T tax, which last I checked is 2.5% of the transaction value. And that is also going to offset the property tax declines. There's a lot of other factors, but those are the two that hit me, that are the most obvious. And so I'll let Honorable talk about that, but that is part of the answer to what your question is.
And if you get people working and you get people back in the city, You also had the piggyback tax.
Oh, this is great for businesses. This is great for businesses. Honorable, I didn't mean to step on your toes there. I'll let you say something if you want.
I mean, it's an adjustment, of course, but as we say, that adjustment takes place over the better part of a decade, 6 years. But here's the thing. Think about the timing here. Under the American Rescue Plan Act signed by President Joe Biden on March 11th of 2021, the city of Baltimore gets $641 million in federal support, direct federal support. So that really smooths this transition. Matt is right. You'll see a pickup in transfer tax, in recordation tax, because you're going to see lots of investment in the city right away. 3-year assessment cycle. Eventually, property becomes more valuable, and so those lower property tax rates are meeting up against higher property tax values, and ultimately, it becomes revenue positive for the city. I mean, look, over time, what's the city going to happen? Play this out. Play out the dynamic status quo in your mind. As the city continues to lose population, fewer and fewer taxpayers, what's the motivation then? Continue to increase the property tax rate because you still need to finance government. Eventually, the city just loses out, just can't make it anymore fiscally. It becomes a ward of the state. What we're suggesting is to provide an avenue toward direct democracy, to give the Baltimore City voter the opportunity to say, let's follow a different path. Let's follow the path of growing the tax base, growing population, adding to business, increasing the value of the commercial real estate market, so on and so forth, creating more housing choice for Baltimoreans. And I think because of that $641 million package signed by the president on March 11th of last year, and of course, as part of a $350 billion package of support to state and local governments across the country, this adjustment has to take place now, if it's ever going to take place. And so I think that's the best answer that I can give as to how the city continues to operate very smoothly and balance its budget each and every fiscal year.
But that money's going to run out. That
Right,
money
he
is
gave all that
spared
money
the
away.
time.
He didn't give
Well,
all-
I don't know if it's all been given away yet.
Damn, there.
Well, also to be clear here, we think it's going to be a very close call right out of the gate, even whether this is going to be revenue positive or revenue negative. We're absolutely convinced. By the way, we have not one, but 2 PhD economists. One of them is Honorbon. But we also have another PhD economist on this team. So we've crunched the numbers probably in a more sophisticated way than anybody has done and perhaps is capable of doing, quite frankly. So we are extremely confident in our forecasting. Yes, they're forecasts. The U.S. could have a recession. There's things that can happen. But, we can't take the fault of some recession. But nonetheless, based on our modeling, we feel it's a close call, and therefore, if it's slightly positive or slightly negative, there's going to be absolutely no need for any cuts of any services. And if there's a small shortfall, it can either be made up in the way Honorbon talked about. There's also, rainy day fund, things that you can, there's a dozen other ways the city could deal with it. And it's not going to be a problem. So that's our forecast, and we stand by it, and we believe that.
By the way,
So how many
implementation
signatures
doesn't.
do you have?
How many signatures do we have? Yeah.
Sorry, Honorbon. You want me to answer that?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, I would say we were at the AFRAM Festival with a bunch of people, and we got a lot of signatures. I would say we're somewhere between 1,000 and 2,000 signatures right now. Obviously, that's a long way to go. We only went public on this on the 9th of our website went live, and we went live publicly. We did a lot of behind-the-scenes work this entire year. I've, quite frankly, been working my butt off on this basically since January 1st. I heard about the possibility of this in December. It hit me like a lightning bolt, like I said. I was parked in a giant food on the York Road when someone told me about this, and it hit me like a lightning bolt. And I've been working. I've read about the budget to get up to speed on that. And Baltimore City budget, nicely downloaded offline. They do have a nice website. You can do that. And we've been working very hard to pull this great team together. It's just, a fabulous team. Obviously, we have former judge and former Baltimore City solicitor Andre Davis on our team. And we have excellent media people, and we have a lot of people like me, maybe, who are like the worker bees of the team, but mailing out petitions and handling requests and things. So we love to have more worker bees. We'd love to have more leaders. Madam Mayor, if you want to get involved, that'd be great. So we welcome everybody's help. This is not, there's no political affiliation with this. I'm quite certain, while I don't know the political party of everybody listed on the website, the coalition, I'm not privy to, I don't know that. I haven't surveyed it, but I would safe to say, I know we got Democrats. I think we got Republicans, probably got some libertarians on there. We got some independents, and who knows what else. So there's no political angle here. This is absolutely, undoubtedly, in my lifetime, maybe with the exception of Harbor Place opening, this is, I believe, in my heart, This is the biggest opportunity to change the trajectory of Baltimore in a positive way that I've seen in my lifetime. And I will also venture to say that we'll probably see in the upcoming years. So this is our chance. We've got an incredible team, and we're looking for as much help and support as we can get.
So, Anna, let me ask you this, because people will look at it from a frame point of a large part of Baltimore City's population, African American, are renters. They're not homeowners. So this is, to them, they don't see the solution in this. A lot of people will look at this as a class issue. This is, higher classes, is Roland Park, the Mount Washingtons, the Cantons, the Fells Points. They're worried about home ownership and this property. Why should a renter from an African American community like Sandtown, Park Heights, whatever, why should they be concerned about signing up and or even voting for this type of initiative?
Because it could drive their rents down. Why? Because one of the costs that a landlord faces, of course, is property taxes. So to the extent that landlords also enjoy lower property taxes, they have an opportunity to pass along those cost savings to renters. Now, people will say, well, they're not going to pass those along. They'll pocket those because people have this image of landlords. But landlords are in a competitive marketplace, right? If they charge too high rents, then somebody will move to the next apartment and they'll suffer a vacancy. And so because of that comparative pressure, if landlords are paying less in property taxes, that should result in, all things being equal, lower rents. And in this inflationary environment, we need all the help we can get at the household level. When people are facing higher fuel prices, food prices, so on and so forth, if we can get some relief, it's actually an anti-inflation measure. Here's the other thing. It invites in more investment into the housing stock. All these vacant properties, right? So we have homeless people, and yet we have right next to them these vacant properties that should be habitable, but they're not. If we can get more investors, including mom and pop investors, 1-row home, 2-row home, and they bring them back to life, that increases the value of that property, of course, but it also gives people more options in terms of where they can live, where they want to live. And so this really inures to the benefit of many people, renters, homeowners, so on and so forth, and ultimately the city of Baltimore. It should be noted again that this does not start implementation until fiscal year 2024. So the city has a fair amount of adjustment time. And the other thing, and we didn't really talk about that too much, or not enough perhaps, is that if we can retain more population, that translates into higher income tax collections, piggyback tax collections. And if people move in, even before property is reassessed, they also start paying more income taxes in Baltimore City right away as population starts to move higher. And so that's why Matt says year 1, year 2, it's going to be a close call. But anyone who thinks that automatically the city is going to lose a ton of revenue, they're wrong about that. And our spreadsheets, and again, we have 2 PhD economists for whatever that's worth on our team, we both agree the city will be revenue neutral the first couple of years and then be quite revenue positive thereafter.
Correct.
Well, even and I hear you saying, and even through this process, if it happens, I mean, the city also, and you have to constantly look at this. You also have to always look at where there could be potential waste and tighten up where there is waste. So there are a whole host of things that needs to happen. And a person in Sandtown might decide, hey, property tax has been reduced. There's many incentives to create a homeowner. And then seniors could potentially stay in their homes, because a lot of times seniors can't afford to stay in their home, and then they have to be moved out into senior buildings or move with family members. So
Madam Mayor,
it could be beneficial.
Madam Mayor, you're exactly correct there. I've heard directly from some seniors who said, look, my assessment keeps going up. It's harder to stay in my house. I mean, that really broke my heart. So you're absolutely right. So that you're lowering the tax would certainly help that woman. The other thing, you hit another good point. I was at Hunfest walking around, collected 50 signatures a couple of Saturdays ago. And several young people I talked to, I said, oh, you're interested? Oh, I'm a renter. I said, well, hey, guess what? When you buy your house, hopefully in Baltimore City, hopefully you'll stay here, your overall mortgage payment will be lower. I can't tell you what your rate's going to be. I don't have that kind of crystal ball. But what I said is like, your tax piece will be lower. So you have all other things equal, you're going to have a lower mortgage payment, total mortgage payment. And that kind of got their attention. So like you said, it can help convert a renter more easily to a homeowner if that's what they would like to do. So it makes it more affordable for people like that. So this absolutely benefits renters. Obviously, it's a little more obvious and a direct benefit to homeowners, but renters absolutely going to benefit here. And that is certainly intended.
So here's my question. before we wrap this up. I understand that, say for instance, you get to 10,000 signatures or that you need to get on the ballot.
Yep.
Based off of what I just saw in that article from the Scott administration and knowing what I know of them, they are going to run $1 million campaign plus against the ballot initiative.
Yep.
Will y'all have the resources to be able to drive your own campaign, educational campaign from August through November?
Yeah. No, I'll speak a little bit to that. And wow, I really hope they don't waste their money in that way. But if they want to waste their money that way, they can go ahead and do it. I mean, what I think we're gonna at that point, we're gonna try to run up the score, so to speak, when we get our signatures. If we get 15,000, we're going to go to 30,000. We're going to go to we'll go 45,000 if we need to. Over I don't think we'll get to August 1st, but nothing to stop us from keep getting signatures, whatever. But my point is, this is going to be an absolute landslide win in the ballot box. And anybody who doubts that, I'll just say I'll see you on November 8th, because the citizens of Baltimore, the homeowners, the renters, the business people, we didn't even get into that. This is a huge win for businesses, small and big, in Baltimore City. But this is going to be an absolute rout in the ballot box. And I tell you, any politician who wants to get in the way of this, they can do it at their own peril, so to speak. So that's how I feel about it. And if I'm proven wrong, so be it. But we're going to win in a landslide November 8th.
It'll be a landslide. Matt is right. We just saw results of a recent Goucher College poll indicating how unhappy Baltimore City residents are with the state of affairs. They want change. We're offering them change through this process of direct democracy. They're going to vote for change. The city can try to suggest that we're doing just fine. We have, we're improving in terms of public safety. We're not. That our economy is performing well. It's not. That it's easy to live in Baltimore City. It's not. What we're suggesting is a brand new trajectory for this city. We're going to win in a landslide, and this city is going to follow a very different path going forward. And I've suggested many that when and if we get this done, ultimately Baltimore City will put Nashville, Tennessee's economic boom to shame. This is going to make international news because Baltimore has that kind of potential. We're a port city that happens to be home to Johns Hopkins, Under Armour, T. Rowe Price, University of Maryland, Baltimore, and many other institutions. Our destiny is a very bright one. We have a very bright future in front of us. We haven't actualized our potential. We're about to do that.
I totally agree.
So
I didn't read the article that Hassan referenced in reference to the Sun paper and Brandon's comments, but I do agree that there has to be a change, because between being strangled with water bills, high taxes, crime out of control, schools are horrible. I mean, I'm just so disappointed in Baltimore City Public Schools. That, if we don't, why I don't know why we haven't come to the realization of why people have left the city. It's not just because of crime. That's really probably not the biggest issue. Because I talk to people. People think I live in the county because I'm in the county so much because all my friends live in the county. But because of property tax, because of water bills, and because of education.
Yes, I agree.
Madam Mayor, I was on the school board from 2005 to 2011, the city school board, and obviously it's been a struggle. But how about this? I mean, when I was on the school board, we always wrestled with which school we close next, right? Because we were underpopulated. And the city school board today is still wrestling with those issues. How about a situation which we're adding population and a city school board gets to ask the question, where do we build our next school? Right? Where do we build our next school? Because all of a sudden our schools are getting too crowded. That's where we want to head as a city, right? And that's new momentum. It's a new day. It's optimistic. That's where we're going to go. And we're going to get this done. And we're going to give people a choice on November 8th of 2022.
All right, well, gentlemen, thank you. Matt, before we go, make sure you remind the viewers again where they can go online to get involved, get engaged, and get those petitions signed.
Well, thank you so much. So the organization the coalition that Honor, Bon, and I are part of is called Renew Baltimore. And the website is www.renewbaltimore.org, O-R-G. Please put the O-R-G on there. And it's a very, even though this is a grassroots effort and we're going to the people, we also have a lot of professionals like Honor Bond helping us with this. And so it's a very nice looking website, very readable, a lot of information on the website, answers a ton of questions, and you can click on there and find the petition and download it or request it, whatever you prefer. And we really welcome, and you also can sign in to volunteer to help this campaign by going out and getting 20 signatures of your neighbors or whatever. We're going to need people to do that. We need like an army of people out there doing that. And we really would welcome your help. And we really, quite frankly, need your help. And if you want to lower property taxes in the city in order to cause a renaissance in this city for the betterment of our city and everybody here, I just encourage you to do that. And I thank you very much.
Absolutely. Well,
Thank
gentlemen,
you. Great information.
absolutely. Family, we put the website on our Facebook and YouTube feed, so that way you can get it there as well.
Thank you.
Matt Wisecool and Ban Basil, thank you so much for joining the Political Regulators, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you,
We
guys.
wish you
Thank
all
so
the
much.
best.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's it. I said, man, I know Madam Mayor's gonna have a good one with that. I'm surprised you were so favorable. I thought you were I know that.
Oh, you were surprised that I was favorable of it?
Huh?
You were surprised that I was favorable of it?
No, I knew over the years when you were in leadership that you wanted to reduce it. And
Yeah,
y'all did.
but we only did it like a nickel, a dime, a quarter. You know, it was a small amount, and we had a whole blueprint, a blue ribbon plan to do it. And unfortunately, Stephanie put it on the shelf, and it stayed there. But it was a very aggressive plan to reduce it over a period of time.
Gotcha. All right. Well,
So right now, I'm seeing all four of us still on here. Matt.
no, they're gone.
Okay.
Yeah. Now we're gonna get into our conversation about these gentlemen that want to be on the school board. So, family, joining us this evening are two gentlemen. It was supposed to be three, but we got two of the three on the program tonight. They are two of quite a few candidates who are seeking one of two open seats for the Baltimore City School Board. This is the first time Baltimore City voters will have an opportunity to vote for two members of their Baltimore City School Board. It was always very appointed. Other jurisdictions have hybrid, which is appointed and elected school boards. But a few years ago, a delegate by the name of Cheryl Glenn put forth legislation, and she was able to do what many city legislators could not get done over the years, and that's at least get two members. She wanted half and half, but she ended up with the compromise of two school board members. They'll be on your primary and your general election. Two of those candidates vying for those two open seats are with us tonight, Michael Eugene Johnson and Kevin Parsons. Gentlemen, welcome to the Political Regulators.
Well, thank you. To be on and good to see my classmate all times. And so just thank you, Hassan, all the time for giving opportunities when a lot of groups don't give opportunities. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Oh, absolutely. So we're going to start like this. First, before we get into the questions and answers.
And before you start, is my audio coming through? You guys can hear me very well? Okay, I just want to make sure. Thank you. Good to see.
So I want to give both of you an opportunity to give us a 1 minute on who you are. And so the family understands and knows who you are. So starting with you, Mr. Johnson.
Well, thank you very much again for allowing the opportunity to be able to be on the show. This is the first time in 193 years that Baltimore City will have an opportunity to put two people on the Baltimore City School Board. Now, they extended the board to 12. They didn't keep the board at 10. They extended it to 12. And I know that this year we had tried to go to Annapolis to discuss about adding 4 more at the next mayoralty election. But of course, by it being an election year, nobody was going to move in that direction for the time. I just believe that more than anything else is that, there's an old line that goes out that says that America will never fix education until it fixes poverty. Well, I disagree. I think that Baltimore would never fix poverty until it fixes education. And too many times we have that get along folk who come on the school board, and because they are politically appointed, the quietness or the lack of every conversation is consistent. For me, I think that you need a disruptor. You need somebody that needs to come down and listen. Now, that's one of the things you need to do. You need to come down there and listen, but you need to come down there and ask a lot of questions. And so I'm not into this part about we need all of these social programs. No, you need good leaders, good teachers, adequate funding, and then we need discipline applied into the schools, because between the 1960s and the end of the 1970s, Baltimore City Public Schools couldn't match up to anybody in the nation. Even before that, my parents had to let me know that at Douglas High School, people would send their children from around the country to come to Baltimore to go to Douglas High School, because Douglas High School was at that time considered one of the best African-American black high schools in the country. So me running is really to add a voice for the community, to give the community an opportunity to have a person there who can speak for them and speak loudly, but also recognize what the percentage is. We all have stakes in the school. The stakes in the school is what happened with the product at the end. If the product at the end is not successful, then we are going to pay again and again and again. So I do thank you, Sheila, and thank you, Hassan, for allowing the three of us the opportunity, because I'm sure they can admit, as I've been admitting, is that there's something going on about why black men aren't being invited to forums, aren't being invited to interviews with organizations, and all of this is going on under a cloud as far as I'm concerned. So thank you very much for giving me that opportunity.
Absolutely. And family, Courtney C.D. Witherspoon is another candidate. He has joined us. So, Kevin, we'll let you go ahead and get your minute. I know Michael must not know, he went 5 minutes, but we'll give you
3.5.
We won't hold that against them.
Thank you.
For the most part. How's everybody this evening? First and foremost, I think that I'm going to thank you, Madam Mayor, and Giordano, Mr. Politics, for having us here on this forum. As Michael Eugene Johnson talked about, we're not being invited to a lot of the events that are taking place. Secondly, I like to say I'm a seasoned educator with a lifetime of commitment to service in the city of Baltimore. I've worked very diligently in a number of organizations, including Baltimore City Public School. Madam Mayor, you remember when you visited BDJ Academy, where I was the co-founder along with Councilman Carl Stokes and my cousin, Dr. Gaddy, where we were transforming African-American boys in Baltimore City and giving them an opportunity to think about careers and not get caught up in the criminal justice system. I served specifically as Director of Education for NAACP. I think, Giordano, you was there at that time, and I think CD, your wife was there when I was Director for Education with the NAACP, working with the state. And at that time, Doc Cheatham served as the president, as well as Tessa Austin. Again, I have a lot of service in the city of Baltimore, working as a community education liaison for Councilman Warren Branch in the city of Baltimore. I worked as a senior chief deputy for what was then Belinda Conaway, who serves as the Register of Wills in the probate court, and also worked as a council aide as well. So that's just a brief synopsis in terms of me introducing myself to your listening audience. And thank you for the opportunity again.
Absolutely. CD?
Good evening. How are you?
That's right.
I'm well. Madam Mayor, thank you so much. Hassan, thank you for this opportunity. And of course, to Kevin and Mike, good evening to you both. I come to this race from the perspective of a parent. I've done a lot of advocacy work in Baltimore City, but I am a parent of youth who are currently enrolled in Baltimore City Public Schools. And the reason why that's important is because my wife and I, we receive the calls when the school building is too cold and the children have to wear coats in school because the pipes are frozen. And we also receive the calls when it's too hot in the school building because the school board and North Avenue haven't done the right thing and trying to make sure that we have air conditioning in our schools. I'm also a parent activist. A couple years ago in Sandtown, some of you may have heard, my son's school was slated for closure, William Pender Hughes Elementary Middle School. My son, it was a great exercise for him. We were able to get into the community as a family, knocking on doors, organizing and mobilizing the community. We were able to get North Avenue to reverse their decision to close that particular school. We wound up working with North Avenue for about a year or so. And as a result of that, not only were we able to get them to reverse their decision to close William Pender Hughes Elementary Middle School, but we were able to get them to create another school, the Sandtown Winchester Achievement Academy, in its place. The reason why that's important is because we were able to save the only middle school option in the Sandtown community of West Baltimore, so that those older siblings that were walking their younger siblings to school could continue to do that, and we could keep the family together. Again, I'm a native Baltimorean, and I think that we'll get to this at some point, I'm sure, on this Zoom. But we've got people who are attempting to come into our city. Reminds me of a mayoral race that took place in 1999, where someone came from outside of Baltimore and ran for mayor and split the vote between two native sons of Baltimore by the name of Carl Stokes and Lawrence Bell, and became mayor of Baltimore. And from there, they went on to become governor of the state of Maryland. And I would submit to you that we have an opportunity in this historic election to elect representation who knows Baltimore, who has vested, who has dedicated, and has proven himself to be concerned about this city to serve on the school board. So I'm happy to be one of those candidates, but we have two others on this Zoom who are equally qualified to be there.
We can't hear you, Madam Mayor. Can't hear you.
I don't know what's going on.
There you are.
Yeah.
Okay. So how many people are running on the school board?
There are currently 8 candidates who will file to run.
And you mentioned about not being invited. So are some of the candidates being invited to forums or whatever? Michael
yeah. I
mentioned
mean, absolutely. And I'll speak for myself, and anyone can even back it up, or if they wish. Many times we'll see things that people are being endorsed by or being invited to speak at. And then even when I've made the phone calls to the organizations, the excuses have been very soft and very weak. CD made a good point. I, like CD and parts, we're products of Baltimore City Public Schools. My child went to Baltimore City Public School. My grandchildren go to public school. So I have I have a lot. And then of course I worked in the school system myself for 16 years. It is interesting how this is starting to formulate, because there was a conversation that was held where I said to, I overheard nobody else. I overheard one of the young ladies say, "Oh yeah, the mayor had said that it's a good idea for me to run because I was going to put an application in at first to be for one of the 2 vacancies that are open." So I don't know if this is the establishment who they've selected. They are pushing these only 2 women. They're not pushing, they're not discussing anyone. So for me, I know that there have been events and opportunities to speak that I didn't have that opportunity to do so.
And just to piggyback on what Mike has said, I'm not surprised, because this is politics, which also comes in the form of politricks. And so I'm not surprised that in some cases we're not being invited, because it seems to be an opportunity to really put other candidates in the forefront. And so there's no equity, but at the same time, we just have to run our campaigns. We can't get caught up in upset. And I know that we're very capable of doing that. because that's just a small portion of the process. But I do understand that that's part of the political landscaping, that you will have those kinds of things that happen to candidates, and that kind of trickery will take place. So I just encourage us to continue to run our campaign.
Well, I don't think that it was for me. It's like a bad apple or nothing. I think
Yeah.
we just want to recognize the fact that we have black men who are in this race. Black men who not only in the school system, who represent the largest amount of dropout, the largest amount of miseducated people in the school system, and where you have black men who could at least articulate these issues on a level of fairness. When that doesn't happen, no, I will always bring that up
No,
at
Right.
every opportunity. And that's not a challenge
agree.
to my friend
Yeah.
Carson at all.
I agree.
Yeah.
Well,
No,
I
I'm
think
on the
also looking at your experience, your involvement and engagement with the schools, not just now, but for a long time, there is a huge not only commitment, but would be a huge asset to the school board.
Correct.
But even with appointed school board members, it just flabbergastes me that what happened? It's like I don't recall. I know when I was dealing with a appointed school board, man, I had them not only meeting with them regularly and pushing an agenda that I felt was necessary and needed in the schools, but challenging the CEO. I mean, the CEO works for the board
Correct.
and the citizens, and things have like just turned around. And people can say what they want about Fox 45. I would encourage you to go on there and share with them your perspective on the ghost kids and other issues, because folks that are currently on the school board run away instead of dealing with the issue, even if they weren't aware it was going on. The fact that, it is public now, but our schools have just gotten horrible. And people
Correct.
want to talk about why they're moving. That's one of the big reasons why people have left the city. And now they're trying to figure out, how can I go to Anne Arundel County, Howard County, not even Baltimore County? So,
Madam Mayor, you're absolutely right. I think before you came on, you made that comment about people moving outside of Baltimore City. People buy houses based on the quality of a school that's in the community. That's what they look at. They look at the house second, but they look at the school first. I thought it was very interesting just last week. I don't know if anybody else saw it. I said, this is a good thing that the school district did, but then I think they got spooked. Somebody encouraged them to pull it down. They posted 40% of the kids are reading at or above grade level, which means that 60% are not. But I think somebody spooked them and told them not to be as transparent. And that is the issue that we also are having with our school board. You also talked about how the school board has been rubber stamping. They have not been holding the leader accountable, as well as the system or the organization accountable in terms of its central office leaders. We have to do that. We can't rubber stamp. We have to challenge. We're going to have to change the culture and climate of our district, and we have to do out of the box thinking kinds of things. We have a number of kids who are homeless. Our kids suffered learning loss under COVID for the 2 years. Many of the kids did not have adequate technology and hotspots to even access the curriculum. Our special ed and student support office, in many cases, those kids did not get the services during that 2-year period. There's just a plethora of problems that are going on. And of course, this blueprint is not even a fingerprint, right? With the reading, I mean, when I was, doing stuff, I was chief academic officer in Baltimore City at one particular point for the charter school, but director of high school. We had structural reading programs, Successful Hall, Open Court. Now you have a wit and wisdom curriculum that goes up to the middle school, but we also need things for our high school students. And it's this crib to career process, that it has to be streamlined throughout the system, where kids are coming and getting the early education that they need. And then when they get to high school, they're having access to career paths, if not college paths. And the career paths means that we give them the vocational learning. We're not partnering with businesses the way we need to. Kids need to go to school maybe half-time and then work and get paid. There's some real significant things that we can do that we're not doing. And we have to hold the leadership accountable as school board members.
Madam Mayor,
agree.
Madam Mayor, I
Okay.
thank you so much for articulating that the CEO answers to the board. Because one of the things that we've been seeing is that there seems to be a reverse in that understanding. When we did interviews with the BTU and even the work that we did with Saving the School, it just appeared to me that the relationship was the other way around, and that the board did not recognize its influence in relationship to the operation of the schools, and that the CEO did not respect the board. The fact of the matter is, we have ceremonial meetings that take place at the school board. When you think about the type of things that are happening within our schools, we need to have meetings that are in depth, that are bringing in our communities to ensure that we have real conversations. We need to take the school board meetings to the communities, in fact. We know a lot of our people catch the buses, things of that particular nature. We have school buildings that are located within our communities, and we need to take the meetings to the communities because the issues that are happening in our schools have the potential to impact the future of our city. Being a foster care parent myself, I see young people come in and out of my home who are not at grade level. One of the foster daughters that I had received an honor roll certificate for reading, and we knew that she was not at grade level. So my family had to go to the school and contend with the school and say, thank you for the certificate. We like certificates. My biological son is on the honor roll, has been on the honor roll his entire career in school. We like certificates for the refrigerator, but we want to make sure that the certificate that she is receiving matches up with what she is learning. And one of the problems that we're having is that our children are preparing for test after test after test after test. And those tests are changing the dynamic in the classroom, and our children are not learning the basics. They're not proficient in reading and math, and they're not at grade level. And so that's one of the issues that we face. And I completely agree with Kevin. We need to make sure that one of the things that I'd like to see is IEPs or something similar for every student in Baltimore City Public Schools, because we need to ensure that we have children who are academically proficient and are on level, that we push them to the stars and they go to the best schools that we can find, best citywide schools that we can find. But those young people who may not be college material, we need to be working with our trade unions. We need to be working with those type of entities so that we can push them towards a career path that will make them just as successful as someone who got a 4-year degree.
No, I agree. And in some cases, you can make even more money in those careers than you do with a college degree. But I agree with everything y'all all have said. And unfortunately, I wish we could have a larger elected school board versus an appointed school board if we're only going to do it. It's like right now, Baltimore City Public Schools receives more money than they've ever received before. We're like number 3 nationally per pupil. And after COVID, during COVID, I won't forget this. My nephew's children, one went to college, she just graduated, and one goes to Roland Park. And both of his parents are police officers. If it weren't for my sister, his great aunt, sitting next to him, taking that ruler, hitting him on the hand, and everything else she had to do,
Yes.
he would not have succeeded in moving to that next level, on top of his parents getting tutorial help for him, etc. And now he's really excelling. But he had that kind of focus and discipline from family to do that. And a lot of kids didn't have that. I would drive around and I would see kids, I'm like, well, why come they not at home doing work? So you know, and I don't want my tax dollars going into something bad. And right
Correct.
now, that's how I feel is happening. And a lot of us at my age who are retired or I do consulting work and other things, we're saying, I don't have kids in public schools. Why should my money go into public schools? You know, that's how frustrated. And as a former teacher, you know, I'm sad to see what's happening. And I agree with Mike. It's not about poverty is there, but education brings you out of poverty.
Correct.
That's many, many years ago, from the time people came up from the South and other places. And then you have to ask yourself the question, why is it that individuals from other countries come to Baltimore City Public Schools, from African countries, Middle Eastern countries, etc., and they are able to exceed and go beyond what many of our children go beyond? Because education at family is priority.
Well, and the other thing that we've done is, and I know CD has heard me say this before, is that we've made a decision to have an average school system. Mm-hmm. See, there wasn't an average school system when I attended school. I was an average student. The school itself was a hard, tough school to get into. And what we've done is that we've accepted that we want an average school system for our extraordinary kids. All of our kids start coming into that building if they give them the right pre-K, which should be nothing but about reading. That's what each pre-K should be, is completely about reading. But when you look at the end of the 70s, all of these large, white, liberal organizations began to make their influences in what we call the urban schools. Mm-hmm. And so the miseducation of our children, because I had a lot of male teachers mm-hmm. in junior high and mm-hmm. high school. Yep. I've had a lot of black teachers yep. in junior high and high school that was many of them coming out. And I know Sheila can reflect that many of them was coming out of HBCUs. Yep. So there was that kind of way that we recognized that we weren't average in an average building. And like I said, I didn't see an A in my grades except on my name. I was a C student. That's who I was. But my counselors and everybody who was part of making this school extra tough, and I mean tough, was because they knew what we were capable of doing. We need to be very, very careful, especially as African Americans, to let people come and tell us what's wrong about children. So we got to be careful with the IEPs. No, every child should have an opportunity. If they need to get checked out, they should get checked out and handled in the right, proper way. Mm-hmm. But when you start convincing a school that you've changed the grades, what does an average student think about that? Mm-hmm. When you convince an athlete that you can, I mean, Sheila and I were both athletic and athletes. You'd have a 72 mm-hmm. to even participate in athlete. Now you can have a 59.
Oh my goodness, a 59.
A 59 to participate and only fail one class. When I remember, you couldn't fail any.
Right.
So I'm saying that if we have given our children, and we're giving our children a sense of you're an average person, and this is our average school, that's what we're going to get. And what we need to do is make the standards harder, make the standards higher, make it tougher, because a child will react that way. Look, we're the most toughest people on the world, planet. We came across the ocean. We served for over 400 years for other folks. We served 100 years not even getting a fair chance. And now we're talking about schools is a problem. How many of us went to school when there was 2 feet of snow on the street?
We all did.
The threat of snow now.
And no air conditioning either.
Yeah, and no air conditioning. The threat of snow, you don't go to school now. Some of the best snowball fights I ever had was snowball fights. So I'm just saying to say to you that we've got to be careful. We can't keep dumbing it down. We can't keep saying what's wrong with our children.
Right. But you have to, and where you have issues or challenges in that school, that's why I believe in that whole community school concept. Absolutely. You bring those resources into that school.
Correct.
To support those individuals. My mother was a parent liaison who used to go down to Murphy Homes when those kids didn't come to school, and she would have a pair of scissors in her purse. And I'm like, I don't think a pair of scissors is gonna do anything, Ma. But she wasn't afraid, and she would bring those parents into the school and had seminars and workshops in some cases to teach them certain skills in order to help them with their children. You know?
You're so right, Madam Mayor. One of the things I'd like to see happen is for us when, as a parent, my wife's a mathematician, and thank God that she is, because when the children come home with math homework, it is really, really a challenge sometimes to be able to assist them in the way that they need to be assisted to get the homework done. So I'd like to see more seminars, more resources from North Avenue being hosted in the communities to assist parents to be better parents and to assist them to be able to help their children with their homework assignments. And not just that, our schools really need to become hubs to the communities. What affects our children at home and on their way to school can affect the climate of the entire classroom.
Yes.
I talked about when I moved from Sandtown to Northeast Baltimore, and I'm sorry, that's one of my babies in the background. When I walked my son to school, we bypassed chalk outlines of bodies that were laying on the ground who had been murdered the night before, and we had to bypass drug lines. So our students are experiencing trauma from the time that they leave the house to school. So we need to re-envision homeroom. We can't expect for our children to be able to turn it off as soon as they get in the school building. So that might include some sort of music therapy. It might include Zumba. It might include restorative practices or circles, just something to bring them down from the trauma that they experienced before they came in. Because if we don't do that, what happens is that trauma spills over into the classroom environment, and then the day is hectic. They may get into an altercation. They may just be disruptive in class. So you're right. We just got to figure out ways to ensure that what happens in the community is detected in the school, and that we figure out creative ways jointly with the community to address those issues, because those children are ours and they do go to school. And what happened yesterday affects their school environment today.
And the administrators, the teachers, everybody has to be accountable and responsible.
Correct.
And not to cover up. And we be qualified, like Mike said. We had qualified teachers back in the day, and they did not tolerate. I remember I was a middle kid, and I did get some A's, Michael, but it took a lot for me. I had to study longer than what my sister had to study. She could catch on like this. I had to really apply myself, and every child learns differently. When I taught school, I realized that. I taught early childhood. I couldn't teach one child. I had to assess each child to determine what their capabilities were and what type of learning techniques they had. Some by sight, some by hearing. It's various ways that young people learn. And there are a lot of kids who flunk out who are dyslexia because nobody has picked up and recognized that. I have one of my campaign persons, she does media now. Her daughter, she could afford this. She discovered that her daughter, she didn't know was dyslexic at the time, but her daughter was having these challenges, and she had her tested and had a da-da-da, and they found out she has dyslexia. So she could afford to send her to, Genesee? But we should have in the school, if your teacher doesn't understand how to teach dyslexia, then there should be resources in there to work with that child, because that child's not dumb. They calculate and assess things differently.
Correct.
And I don't think any of that's going on.
So
question
for each of the candidates. The governor, Hogan, created a program called Broadening Options and Opportunities for Students Today, or the BOOST program. It gave financial assistance from the state to have lower income children be able to go to private institutions and or religious institutions. Are you in support of the BOOST program and or public charter schools? Kevin, let me start with you. We can't hear you, Kevin.
Are you on mute, Kevin? Yeah, we still can't hear him.
All right, CD.
Why don't you come back to him? Go to CD and Witherspoon and Mike.
So, especially under the current circumstances that our schools are in, as a parent myself, I think that parents should have a right to be able to send their children where they believe their children will receive the best education. I would submit to you that I am not the biggest fan of charter schools, but I think in this particular climate, I do think that would be appropriate for children and their parents to have an option. When you see situations where grade changing is taking place, where you see things where schools are graduating youth who are not proficient in important areas like reading and math, again, I do believe that parents should have a choice and an option to send their children to a school where they know and where they believe they will receive a quality education.
I mean, there is no question that if a child, this is about the children. This ain't about the teachers. This is about the children. And whatever we need to do to get a child educated, we need to make it happen. Now, what we do too much with these charter schools sometimes is we allow these charter schools to open up and don't even allow some of the children in the neighborhood to be able to go to some of the charter schools. So what we need to do is make sure that when we start having these charter schools as well as regular public schools, they belong to the community in which they're in. The community in which they're in has the right to make sure that their children can go to these schools. Now, I know that the conversation is about, well, these private schools or these choices take money out of the public school system. Well, the money you have, you're not educating our children. So wherever it is that my children can get educated, if it's a private school or a religious academy, as long as they can get educated, I'm with it.
Kevin, can you? I don't know if we can hear him yet.
Hassan, while we're waiting for Kevin, if I could interject this as well. The only thing I would say in relationship to the charter schools, and I know that this is the way that they operate in terms of having their own independence and autonomy, we do need to find ways, though, to ensure the oversight there from Baltimore City Public Schools. I do want to just reiterate that because I think it's important. I think that if resources are being given, there needs to be the accountability of the oversight piece. So I would like to see more of that with our charter schools.
Well, one of the things we also got to do is we got to oversight the public schools that we have.
Correct.
Because we are allowing our children. This is about the children. This is all that this is about, our children and the history. They always say that you should behave well because you're sooner or later going to be the ancestors. What do our children say about us?
Correct.
If we're not preparing them in the public school system, in the charter schools, or in the private schools? If it's just about sending them to school, then we've done that for the last 35 years.
Correct.
We're in the second generation of children and parents now who've received substandard education in our Baltimore City public school system, primarily because of the curriculum and because of the commitment of the people who are responsible.
Correct.
There is is there another question? Kevin, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can't hear the mayor now either.
Oh.
Let's see.
There's a Census Bureau report that's out. It says that in Baltimore City alone, students who are attending school right now in 2022 to 2026, 22% of them will not finish school. That is 1/4 of our system.
Correct.
And if we're anything that we've got to do in order to make that right has got to start with pre-K. We cannot fix these schools in the middle of a high school or in the middle of a middle school. It's got to be pre-K, and I do appreciate the significant effort that's being made in order to get pre-K. Pre-K and mentoring will turn things around in our schools and changing the curriculum, because here we are. We spend $17 million at Maryville every year. $17 million. And yet we're working on gas-fired engines that were created in the 40s and the 50s. And in Bethesda, Maryland, they're working on Teslas.
Wow.
So we've got to put our priorities in check.
Correct.
Yeah. Can you hear me now, Hassan?
Yep.
Yes.
Wow. One of our companies, R. Harrington, who was a product of Baltimore City Public School at Westside and Northwestern, started a underground utility program, and he created a curriculum. He's working with Maryville, Carver, and Westside. And last summer, and this is with his money, brought in students from Maryville, Westside, and Carver. And this is through the plumbing program, because he was a plumber, and underground utility is where the money is going. But you have to go down in the ground. You have to understand what's below the ground. And it was funny because he couldn't keep half of the students. One, because of the heat. They were too hot. They didn't want to go underground. They didn't want to get dirty. Now, here they're in a plumbing program at Maryville. And so he's trying it again this summer. And he's also going to work with Yo Baltimore, some other programs as well, because this is where the money of infrastructure is going to be coming to.
We cannot constantly pour in $17 million into Maryville, and I'll just use Maryville as an example because Carver is on the same level, where now our children that want to be beauticians and barbershop, they took all of the certifications out of the trade schools or out of the Maryville and the Carver. And what you do is now you have to go to another school, what you call a pay school, after you graduate, just to take your tests.
Oh wow!
Because when it was, you could come straight out of Maryville, straight out of Carver, and go and take the state board test. What they did is the board changed, and the schools, the hair school owners became the majority of the barber and beautician state board. And now that whole certification has been taken out of trade school for people to just leave Carver or Maryville with hair skills and go and take the test. That's why we have to do an evaluation of the curriculum in the schools, because we can talk all of the social programs and things we have. If we're still producing substandard students, they're not going to have an opportunity. More students, we're in closing, more students, I was told, attend Coppin and Morgan, spend the first 2 years figuring out math and English and how to write. And so that's 2 years removed from college. So they're going to already almost have to do 6 years because we're not producing the quality that we should be producing in the public school system.
Yeah. No.
Madam Mayor, you mentioned something that I think was really, really key in terms of that whole individualized piece when you were a teacher, customizing a plan for each of your students. And that's why I go back to that IEP plan for all of the young people in Baltimore City Public Schools, because again, we do have young people who perform well scholastically, and we should support them in getting into the best schools, as I stated before. But again, then some of our young people may not be cut from the cloth for college material, and we need to push them in that particular direction and provide them with all of the resources we possibly can, which is why I think we definitely need more trade schools, and we definitely need to interweave the trades and working with our unions to interweave an academic program for those young people. But the other thing that we must talk about is when we've had issue with the police department and the fire department before, we've looked at the population of those departments, and many of those people don't even live in Baltimore. We've got to get the recruitment programs back into our schools for the police department and the fire department and that type of thing, so that we can have homegrown people from our communities in those departments who know the communities, who know who cuts hair on the block, who knows who makes the best pies on the block, and who knows the dynamics of our community to serve us in those capacities as firefighters and police departments as well. So I definitely, we need to get those recruitment programs back into our schools.
Yeah, and when we get them back, we need to keep them there because we had a police and fire academy
At Walbrook. Yep,
that
at
was
Walbrook.
working with young people
there.
from Baltimore City. You know, same thing
Correct.
with the other, you know, with young people, with entrepreneurs. I know back in the day, you know, I used to say to myself, I'm not going to be a secretary. Why do I have to take typing? And, you know, you had home economics and Garrison Junior High. I had wood shop and all these things. I said, okay, why am I taking this stuff? But later on, I know how to make stuff and I know how to use a hammer. And
Correct.
those skills from taking typing is on the computer.
Correct.
You know, the one thing that I really missed out on, and it wasn't taught in the way that they teach it now, we had foreign language, but it wasn't taught where you need to know this language. Just don't memorize the dialogues in your book. You got to come in and speak it, etc., because of the, you know, the changes that happen. That's one area that I wish our teachers had to really emphasize that a little differently than what they did.
Correct.
You know that technology can be a blessing and a curse. So I'm sorry there were some technological challenges that were taking place, but there's a lot of catching up. First, I wanted to answer, and I thought you guys could hear me answer Giordano's question about charter schools. I have been a part of the charter school movement.
Charter and Boost. Boost is where they give you money.
Absolutely. After school programs. Yes. Which is a great program. And we need to do more of that. One of the things that we fail to realize is that charter schools are public schools because they get public funding. And so I'm a big proponent of school choice for parents. Madam Mayor, you mentioned something about accountability and expenditures. And what we don't do is we don't hold those powers that be in terms of how they utilize the money they're getting. You talked about increasing funding, how, you know, Baltimore particularly gets a lot of funding, but we're not getting the ROI, the return on investment on our investment for various programs and for our children. We're in an SOS state. It's a save our students. And we need to make sure that we have adequate funding, but we also have accountability. There's a lot of mismanagement and misappropriation that takes place in our school system. And we need to have an audit. The same way we had the grading audit, we need to have a fiscal audit. There needs to be fiscal responsibility for the most part. And in terms of the grading piece, I just want to say this very quickly. I know that there are times when collaboratively administration and the teacher will work hand in glove in terms of a kid may have 58 or 59, and sometimes they'll let the kid do a project or a couple assignments. You just don't give the kid a grade. You make them earn it. But one of our failures was that we went from 70 to 60. It lacks rigor when you go to 60. There's more rigor academically when you have a kid who's striving to earn a grade of 70. And so I think, again, we have to be out of the box. You talked about some of the old things that really work. We got away from. And we had people who came into the system from out of town and really turned our system upside down. We pushed out a lot of the most experienced principals because we thought we were paying them too much. We brought in younger principals who did not know their way to the restroom. And, you know, right now, every industry is lacking employees in terms of human capital. We have to do a better job. And I heard you, Madam Mayor, talk about highly qualified teachers, but we have to do a better job of recruiting, training, and retaining our teachers. We lost those and supporting them. But also on a bigger scale, we have to do family engagement. We have to go out. If you got an office director of family engagement and they're not doing home visits, there's a problem with that. And going out. In terms of, Cedar, you were mentioning about informed trauma. You know, that's a part of what my doctor is in, informed trauma and mental health around students who are in school, and particularly with IEPs. We don't have the counselors, even at the elementary and middle school level, We have counselors at the high school level, and they're focusing on college readiness. But we need to have counselors at the lower level, a related services program where kids can get the therapy. You talked about this, Madam Mayor, the therapy that they need, the speech pathologist that they need, the occupational therapist that they need, and all these things. When they talk about dealing with the whole child, that is what we need to do, and we're not doing it at a very high level.
So real quick, strategy-wise, because y'all literally have to campaign citywide, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
So what are you doing? I mean, because citywide is not as easy as doing a district.
Here, Madam Mayor, and you're one who knows more about that than we do. It's funny you say that, because when I ran for city council, I was like, whoa, Then when I ran for delegate, I was like, whoa, because it expands. And now that it's citywide, it's very challenging. You do the best that you can in terms of, outreach and connection. As Mike talked about, the meetings, some of the community meetings you try to attend, and community engagements you try to attend. And of course, visibility as best as you can, with signs and so forth. But, it's a different type of race, and particularly, races, for example, that are really down the ballot, because we're all the way down at the bottom of the ballot. So we don't get, a lot of the support in terms of funding where you can raise the big dollars that you need to do, but you do the best.
And this is new to Baltimore, where other counties, it's a regular thing for folks to run for school board.
Yes.
New. So really educating the public as well. Did y'all make it out to Akron this weekend?
Yes, ma'am.
Absolutely.
I did not get that chance, to be quite transparent.
And Madam Mayor, if I could, I think a lot of it is about, utilizing perhaps pre-existing relationships in some of the communities, having worked with some of the elected officials that are currently elected, perhaps some of those that are running for office right now themselves, working with some of them, and just really getting out there every single day in the communities where we've done work at before, introducing ourselves to some people. But one of the things that the late Senator Clarence Mitchell III told me is that, and I think the people on this Zoom, the communities are familiar with folk on this Zoom, but you should not be having to introduce yourself all across the city when you're running. When we're knocking on doors and we're putting up signs, people are blowing horns and recognize us and saying we got you and those kinds of things. But we don't take anything for granted. We're just working every single day, and like us, just working those relationships and those contacts, that those pre-existing ones, and urging people to come out early voting, of course, and on election day. But early voting is nothing to sleep on. I know you know that, and every single person on this Zoom knows that. So just working diligently every single day.
Yeah, I think this July election is going to be interesting.
Yeah, I'm sorry, man.
I think it's going to be a low turnout, personally.
It's voter suppression at best.
I think you're right. And with the senators, the majority of them being unopposed, I believe, that creates a very unique dynamic as well. I mean, when you look in the neighborhoods, really, you're not seeing a whole bunch of campaign activity. And that's partly because the senators, of course, I think it's the majority of them. Some of them. Yeah, a couple of them have, I think, Republican and independent challengers later on, but the majority of them are unopposed, and that creates a very different dynamic. And you're right, Kevin, all of them in the primary, but it changes the game a little bit, I think, with the senators being unopposed.
But keep in mind the senators, most of them, I know Corey, Tom Perez, Antonio, Westmore, so folks are going to be working their gubernatorial candidates.
Correct.
I think for them, out of most of them, are really out there more than others.
Yes, ma'am. Yep.
Yeah.
And then I believe that it might be a decent turnout from the standpoint. I think that the state's attorney's race has piqued a lot of people's interest. 36,000 people who requested ballots for early voting also gives you a feel of where the numbers have gone in the past. What I think a lot of us are concerned about is even on election day on July the 19th, we don't even have a clue where the polling places are going to be because they haven't even offered that information even up coming from the election board itself. But I think that with the gubernatorial races and somewhat even in the controllers races as well as the state's attorney races are going to bring out some people, and I think that the race is really going to be decided for 4 people to go into November. Now the way that this goes, which I know everyone may know, is that after this race 4 people will then go to November, and then it'll be down to 2.
Correct.
So 4 people who running for a school board will
Right.
go until November, and then there'll be 2.
Correct.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Which is really because in the original standpoint, the original conversation was it wasn't even going to be a primary. We were just going to be in November.
Okay.
And then the rules changed again and the rules changed again. But at this stage, it's the 10 days, the 7th to the 14th is early voting. And then the 19th is the primaries, the full primaries. And then out of that, the top 4 people will go till November the 8th, if I have the right date, November the 8th. And then 2 people will be out of that decision. And that will create a different type of race. But, I find that it is going to be a good race. And I think that the 2 additional members that are here with me have just as good as an opportunity to go to November. And then at November, it's going to be what it's going to be.
And Mike,
Right.
I think you were talking about how it's going to actually everyone was going to be in November and not a primary. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, that's because it was considered nonpartisan. Is that not correct?
That is correct.
Yeah.
Thank you, CD. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of not like a primary because the Republicans can also vote at the primaries as well,
Gotcha,
and the
gotcha.
independents.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So, in closing, how can people reach out and connect with you if they want to help out or contribute or knock on doors with you?
Okay. Well, for me, it's kevinparson.com. kevinparson.com is the website to do all those things that you mentioned, Madam Mayor. There are drop boxes. There are boxes for even the donation and a request to assist in the election in any way that people feel that they have the time. Also, I can be reached at 443-690-7487, 443-690-7487. And of course, the committee to elect Kevin Parson on my social media. And also I have a Facebook page if anybody want to message me there as well. But again, kevinparson.com and 443-690-7487.
Thank you. And you, Witherspoon?
Yep. Again, my name is Courtney C.D. Witherspoon, candidate for school board. I can be reached at 410-500-2168, 410-500-2168. My email address is therevcd1, that's THEREVCD1 @gmail.com.
Mike?
And citizensformej.com is my webpage. My phone number is 443-531-1922. And I can also be reached on Facebook. And we just hope that everybody goes out and execute the opportunity to vote. It's important. No matter what this is about, voting is important. And so as you do go out, we appreciate if you would consider any of these brothers and myself for the school board.
Ditto, Mike, on that.
We appreciate it. It was good. Good talking to y'all. Good luck to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll see you around town, maybe at a church.
Yeah.
Yep. Madam Mayor, you're definitely going to see us. We're Baltimore boys, so you'll definitely see us around.
Right.
Thank you. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you all.
Absolutely. All right now. That was a hell of a conversation. Now, and I think people are confused, Madam Mayor, on clearly even the candidates on. So on the primaries, on both the Republican and the Democrat ballots will be all 8 names for school board, and you'll choose up to 2. And then you
Okay.
go to the general election. Now, usually in other jurisdictions in other states, usually if it's 8 people and you have to select 2, they sometimes they'll have the, top 4, and then they go to the general election, and then it's the top 2. But in this case, you can only select up to 2 on both the Republicans. So their names are going to be on the Republican ballot, just like they're on the Democratic ballot, because they're
Okay.
nonpartisan. But you can only choose up to 2, not 4. So I don't know where.
Right, but he's saying the top 4 will be on the November election.
Yeah, so
So
they can
out of
only
the
choose
8,
up to
top
top. Right. And so the top 4 who get the selections of the top 2, they go to the general election, and then you can only choose 2 in the general election. But they're on
4,
both
gotcha,
ballots, right?
gotcha,
So they're in the primary and the general election on their ballots. And the sample
gotcha.
ballots are out. They haven't been mailed. Some people have gotten them thus far. Not everybody has. And it's unfortunate because people called me and said, "Why are they mailing me a ballot? I didn't request a mail-in ballot. I want to go vote." And I said, no, that's the ballot application. So a lot
Right.
of people aren't familiar with what's going on. And the Baltimore City Board, every board of election, gets millions of dollars for educational purposes before every election. Right? And I ain't seen a damn thing educational wise from Baltimore City Board of Elections. Not
No,
a
me neither.
sign, not an email, but they pay. Baltimore City the state board has a contract with KO Media, right? Run by your homeboy, a guy who used to work for Martin O'Malley, Brad Darty, in his group.
Oh, he has a contract for
Yeah,
education media?
for
Oh, wow.
education and media purposes,
He
and
ain't
yet
my boy.
they're getting millions to do nothing.
Oh,
Literally nothing.
wow.
Like, do you see any digital media or social media
No,
or
I haven't seen
any
anything.
nothing? And it's like, what in the like we raised this issue last election with Out for Justice because we had to educate formerly incarcerated individuals of the new laws and all that. And they were just like, they gave them a little piece of the pie and said, all right, y'all just worry about them. Because we don't want to deal with those type of people. And they just focused on, and it's like, come on. Why are we paying you millions of dollars to
Wow.
educate the citizens that people still don't got a clue on
Wow.
what's going on?
They need to change that out. That's horrible. That's really bad.
It is. We were just in what was it? Northwood yesterday, right? Like shooting fish in the barrel for Ivan. I tell you that. People out on the bout, chilling. It was a nice day out, but many of people were not paying attention. A lot of them didn't know when the election was. They couldn't tell you who the gubernatorial candidates were. Now, every one of them knew who was running for state's attorney. I give you that.
Oh, did they?
But they did
So
not.
you out campaigning yesterday?
Yeah, hitting them
Because
doors.
it's funny. Joshua works with Westmoreland, and they were off yesterday, and he said the same thing I said. People are home. Yesterday was a prime time to be out there.
Beautiful day. Everybody's off. Well, a lot
Yeah.
of people, most people were off because of the holiday. Like people
Yeah.
were out on their porch, washing their car. Like it was like shooting fish in a barrel, literally. Like
Yeah.
we had I think it was like a 60-some% open rate on doors opening,
Wow.
the voter rate. That is a large percent. Usually you only
Well,
get.
they didn't campaign. He didn't canvass yesterday for West.
Yeah, well,
He was
they lost
surprised. He's
out.
like,
They definitely
so,
lost out on that one. And Northwood, that's your territory. Like that.
yeah. But even Josh, he said, this is the day they need to be out there. People are home. I'm like, hey,
Absolutely. Well, that ain't your headache, so you ain't got to worry about that
sure wasn't. No, ain't mine.
until 2024. But anyway, so I had to slide that one up in there. You got people that are pushing it. I'm telling you, people want to. They asked me the other night when I met this group at Jay Steinman's, his political salon.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So they
He
do
had a
it
good
at.
turnout.
Yeah, it was, but they do it at the rec center. They don't do it at his house anymore. They do
Oh,
it
okay.
at Roland Parks Community Center, and so it was a good turnout. But people were asking me. They said, "Well, can we do the same thing that they're doing on the charter amendment? Can we do that for a recall election so we can get Brandon? I said, first of all, you don't got enough time to get 10,000 signatures before August 1st. That's what you would need. And even if it was passed this year, it wouldn't take place until 2024 at the earliest. And he'd be up for re-election at that point. So it's kind of really fruitless. And they were like, oh, but a good majority of those people were, if we could get a recall election, they would. That would be something that they would sign on to on ASAP.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, it really is. I like their effort and their energy, Madam Mayor. I'm gonna tell you right now, they ain't got a chance in the world to get those signatures before August 1st. Because we're pushing up on July now. You got literally.
Yeah, no, you're right.
No,
you're right. People are going on vacation. People, it's gonna be tough.
Well, because they don't have a group that understands how to get the voter file, go door to door. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They have the energy, they have the passion, but unfortunately, I don't think they're going to be able to get it. But here's the caveat: if they follow through with it and do it for 2024 with a longer span of time to get the signatures, you have a greater chance of passing any ballot initiative during a presidential election than you do a gubernatorial, because there's more people that show up to the polls.
So can they start now and continue to get signatures?
No, I think
if they don't get them for this one.
No, they would have to re-get the signatures after this November's general, because after every election it starts over. The process starts over. Right after November, they can just start again and get those signatures. And give it enough time. You need time to get those signatures.
Yeah, sounds like it.
But yeah, they couldn't. There's no way in the world you're getting that many signatures in a month and a half. None whatsoever. Like you said, he just started. They only got 1,000, 1,500 in the past couple weeks. And you had AFRAM and HUNFest to do that. You really don't have too much going left. So, anyway, I don't know. I like the idea though.
I do too. I think they're on the right path. I think it was a good suggestion to make. Maybe look to do it 2024. But you're right. It's a big turnout. Everything.
Like you leading the effort though. They need the grassroots urban community pushing that effort.
Yeah.
It can't be led by people from Roland Park. I'm sorry. It's just not going to happen.
Well, they wanted me to get involved. I just hadn't decided, to be honest with you. And right now, I'm too busy.
Mm-hmm.
I got enough going on.
Yeah. Plus, we got to start mapping out 2024's campaign.
So God must have spoken to you, because he ain't spoke to me yet.
Yeah, he spoke. I'm going to have to call him up tonight.
He had to be loud so the person next to me hear it.
Maybe the line was busy or something.
I said that to somebody all weekend. So.
All right. Well, this was a good show. A lot of information.
Very productive. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, we'll be back next week, family, and I think it's time to wrap. You got something?
Nope. I'm good.
You and me both. I'm tired and I got a headache, so I'm glad you took the lead last part. My head is pounding right now. But next week, family, we've got a couple more candidates for you. We got some issues that we're going to bring to you and to your attention. So make sure you tune in every Tuesday, 6 to 8 p.m. And remember, the new promise begins with a new day. Therefore, the promise of tomorrow is greater than that of yesterday. Good night, family.
Yoo-hoo! I'll make you famous.
We work for Mr. Tunstall as regulators. We regulate any stealing of his property. We're damn good, too. You can't be any geek off the street. Gotta be handy with the steel, if you know what I mean. Earn your keep.
Regulators!